This is Throwin Down with Jess and Lily.
That makes no sense.
You can be funny and not be offensive.
The same way this is your workspace, this is my workspace too.
It's never just sports.
It's never just sports.
It's never just sports.
You'll be a little smarter, and we'll be a little smarter, and it'll be great. I was close to being right. You know what's interesting?
If you don't agree with this, then just turn us off.
Ooh, all right. On that note,
We're throwing down.
Hey everyone. Welcome to Throwin Down with Jess and Lily. I'm Lily Caffrey-Levine.
I'm Jess King.
And we have another great episode lined up today talking about everything current going on, as well as throwing it back to some other more historical things that we wanted to get into today. However,
It'll be a great day.
Yes, it should be an awesome one. However, before we get started,
But first,
there is something that we need to address, and a lot of people need to address. So if you haven't been keeping up with the news lately, then you missed this week's round of offensive things said on live broadcasts. That's right, in all of the unpredictable and wacky news that has made us fear turning every single corner in 2020, you can find comfort in the consistency of rich white men in sports degrading different genders, sexual orientations, and races on live television. This week, there was not one, but two live broadcasts in which a straight white male in a position of power made comments that both create an unwelcoming environment for and degrade people who do not look or think like them. Now, people will tell you it's getting better for minorities in sports, and it is. There are more and more people of color and women working in sports than ever before. But it's getting better by percentage points so small that your intro to stats professor wouldn't round them up from a C+ to a B-. Now, it's hard to find definite data on the demographics that are in the broadcast booths right now. With changing broadcasts come a variety of different mix of broadcasters for different games. But I've been watching sports for about 22 years now. And while I wasn't keeping data in 2002 when I was 4 years old, I've been paying attention. It's mostly white men in the booth. However, 2018, the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sports came out with the 2018 Associated Press Sports Editors Racial and Gender Report Card, which found that 85% of sports editors and 82% of reporters were white. 90% of sports editors and 89% of reporters were male. The grade for racial hiring practices for APSC newspapers and websites was a B. And for gender hiring practices, they received their 5th consecutive F. F as in fail. If you get 5 consecutive Fs in college, they kick you out. Now, the combined grade for all the research done was a D+. A D+! That's not much better than an F. And I bet there are a lot of people out there that still think you can beg your professor to round your D+ up to a B- because you tried really hard this semester. Everyone hated to hear it then, and you're going to hate hearing it now. But showing up 20 minutes late to class or 20 years late to the movement, sitting in the back and watching the box score on your phone while the professor's trying to explain something to you, and handing all your work in late isn't trying hard. That's the bare minimum. Derogatory marks such as the ones made this past week are an unfortunate part of the job description here if you're gay, a woman, a person of color, trans. They say things to you like, make sure you don't let it get to you. Ignore the comments. Can you just let it slide? Don't respond to people. These phrases have become almost the oral tradition of minority groups in sports, passed down to us from the generations before us to make sure that we don't lose our voices that they've fought so hard to get for us. I'm not the first person you've heard this argument from, and I pray I'm not the last because we have a lot of work to do. But when does the responsibility of dealing with offensive behavior and comments become the responsibility of those making them and not the responsibility of the victims to deal with them? It's on those who have been given this huge platform, the ones that are in the booth, to think before they speak, and honestly, to think before they think. People have to start asking themselves, not should you say that out loud, but why do you think that way about women? Why do you think that way about someone who is gay or bisexual or trans? Why do you think that way about Black people, Indigenous people, people of color? It's time to step back, look in the mirror, and step up. It's our own responsibility as adults to unlearn the ideas of hate and acceptance we may have been taught, whatever they were. It's time to learn, to listen, and to commit to being better and accountable before a major network tells us we have to be. So with that, Jess, I don't know if you have any comments on some of the things that were said this past week.
A few. Well, you said it perfectly, and exactly kind of the way I'm feeling. At the end of the day, these are professionals who have worked in the industry for so long. And like you said, it's the people in power and the people who are that high up in the totem pole that will be able to make greater amounts of change in a faster amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And while it's just such a sticky situation because it's just not cool anymore.
Plain and simple.
It's exhausting that we have to open a show like that. I mean,
almost weekly now.
Yeah, so whatever. At the end of the day, like sometimes any person can get caught up in a moment and say something that they don't mean, but that's kind of completely different when I'm talking to you right now, whether we were recording or whether we weren't recording, like we were just talking an hour ago. But these are people who are paid large amounts of money to be on TV and to call games for hundreds of thousands of people that are listening and watching. So I think that we have to hold them to a higher standard than we even hold ourselves, and we hold ourselves to pretty high standards. So with that, I mean, the court of public opinion is kind of running the show here these days, and I am here for it. So yeah, do better.
Everybody do better. Learn from your mistakes and move forward, and learn before you make mistakes. That's kind of my whole point, is don't wait for the network to tell you have to apologize for something. Question why you think that in the first place.
That's true, because when you say something, whether, like I said, even just having a regular conversation, I feel like we know as individuals when we say something that's like a little too far, or we stumble over our words, or wow, that didn't sound as good as I thought it sounded in my head. Like I could see where people could get offended by that. So it's knowing that beforehand, and rather than apologizing when you come back from commercial break, it's about you saying something and being like, oh my God, I did not actually mean to say that. It's also more genuine and authentic as an apology that way. And I think it goes along, while it may look sloppy from a broadcast perspective, I'd rather as a producer be like trusting enough in my broadcasters and commentators to recognize and address that, so we don't have to do it after the fact. And have those 2 minutes and 30 seconds on commercial break is a long time on Twitter for people to get fired up. So I think just do better, straight up, all around.
Yeah. So speaking of doing better, let's talk playoffs. That was a very harsh segue, but nonetheless,
something we wanted you guys to hear.
Yeah, something we wanted to address, but we're also going to get into some of the regular programming for today. So round one of the NBA playoffs still happening. Celtics and Raptors are set for their round two matchup on Thursday. The Magic still have a chance to get out of round one? Question mark. Probably not.
Question mark.
But again, I don't know. Anything could happen at this point. That's
anything can happen.
Luka's probably the future of the NBA. Those were kind of the main points. I don't know if you have anything to add, Jess.
The Lakers and the Trailblazers are off to a really hot round one. This is the type of content that I would be expecting in like the semifinals.
Yeah, no, the
and
round
I really
one
like it.
Good.
Usually, round one is not that entertaining for a lot of people because it's kind of all
even
like,
in the sweeps. It's been entertaining.
Exactly,
which I think is rare.
I mean, the Nets are the Nets, and whatever's whatever. That's a sweep. I knew that was a sweep, and if it wasn't a sweep, I would have screamed. So it's fine. But Damian Lillard's actually out for Game 5 on Wednesday versus the Lakers. So with that, I think that the Lakers might just take it. I think it's a lock. I think that I applaud the Trailblazers and Carmelo Anthony and all the other guys for putting up a great fight. And it's obviously, like we said, been one of, I think it's one of the most entertaining series we'll get out of the NBA playoffs this year, besides for the NBA finals, obviously. But Lillard's Lillard. And
I mean, it was so, like, before he was out.
That's logo Lillard. Like, I was watching The Jump today, and they had their headline as logo LeBron ? And I just...
You're like, no, logo Lillard.
No, it's logo Lillard. Like, where have you guys been? I know we've been talking about logo Lillard for a really long time. But he kind of was like doing it like first. He made it like a clutch thing to do when necessary. And I don't think he's overkilled it at all yet. So, I mean, obviously that's great for LeBron, but like, logo Lillard over logo LeBron for me.
All right. All right. I respect
Sorry,
it.
not sorry, guys.
But I'm excited for the rest of the playoffs to come. I just think there's going to be more
playoff basketball,
great basketball
and
to
playoff
come.
hockey have been crazy.
Yeah. So touching
iconic.
on hockey, round 2, the NHL playoffs, Boston, Vegas, Dallas, and the Islanders are all leading their series by 1 game in the second round. And we'll probably do more on that as things kind of heat up. Not that they're not already like smoking hot, because it's playoff hockey. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. Dallas, man. Dallas.
We'll talk a little bit more about Dallas.
Yeah, we'll get into Dallas more later.
As the show goes on, just kind of updates on what's going on.
Dallas, man. WNBA has given us a whole new round of insults that we can use on people. I cannot wait until all this corona stuff is over so that I can hear someone say in public, I'll see you in the lobby after an argument. Also, someone please make that merch. I will buy it. I'll see you in the lobby is everything.
I need Instagram to stop giving me sponsored ads for Call Her Daddy merch, which is gross. And instead,
someone please make I'll see you in the lobby merch.
Like, hey, Instagram, I know you're listening to me on the microphone on my phone right now, but guess what? Like, I'm not talking about Call Her Daddy because I think it's cool. I'm just trash talking them.
I'll see you in the lobby. I'll see you in the lobby.
Or a joke of feminism, like, in America right now. They're gross. But that's a conversation for a different day, guys. We don't have all day for me to talk shit about that podcast.
So, before Jess gets into it more.
WNBA, though, a couple dates I want to keep in mind for everyone that's listening. You know that Lily and I love supporting women in sports and women's sports, period. Regular season is ending September 12th. And
which is like so soon.
So soon, you don't even think that it's like the 25th right now, but here we are, 26th while you guys are listening to this. But that happens, WNBA playoffs right around the corner for us here while we're enjoying some NBA playoffs. So that will be timed really well if the NBA season ends and you still want to keep watching basketball because the women do it just as well too. So here we are, and the trade deadline is August 28th for them right before playoffs kick off. So a couple things in the news. Maybe next week we can talk some hot topics about what went down right before the trade deadline and what's really going on. We'll dive deeper into the WNBA maybe next week.
Yeah. So that's kind of it for like kind of weekly updates. More on some basketball stuff. I'm taking my bias out of this completely. Like, we all know I'm a Celtics fan. We all know I'm annoying about it, but take that out.
We all know you're from Boston, Lily.
We get it. So honestly, Brett Brown.
How are you going to start this one?
I don't even know. I thought about this for a long time, and I still started talking.
I want to hear the segue.
I was like, how do I even Brett Brown, man, I feel for that guy. I really genuinely feel bad for him. 76ers were swept. We know that much. We know. Brett Brown was fired on Monday after 7 years coaching the 76ers. That much we also know. And this was like a weird kind of 7-year period for the Sixers. Maybe not weird's the word, but there was so much kind of, I don't want to call it hype because they were genuinely good a lot of the time, but there was
on paper
on paper, they were
really
a super
good.
team. Like, they should have been a super team. But then
But
here we are in a first-round exit.
Have one too many good players on their team.
It's like you have this super team. Obviously, Jimmy Butler left. He was there. Like, they failed to re-sign him amongst a slew of other things that have happened
he's like
over the past 7 years.
Fine. Anyway, the Heat are
Jimmy Butler's like, I heard, what's that line from that song? I heard you're doing me and you heard I'm doing fine.
Yes,
or something
he's
like that. Jimmy Butler's
that's
fine.
The Taylor Swift song.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Don't know popular culture. No, so just a slew of kind of like unfortunate missteps that weren't honestly missteps, but like turn out to be missteps. Like the signing of Al Horford should have been a huge move, and it kind of wasn't. And there's a lot of things that go into stuff like this, one of them being team chemistry, and that they have all these superstar players in Joel Embiid, in Al Horford, in Ben Simmons, and all of that, whatever. But there was like this kind of inability to convert, not necessarily individually, but as a team. Obviously, like the first round exit, there's some produce. Yeah, I think might be the word. When you have a first round exit, obviously something's wrong. It is sweet at that. And I think watching the Celtics and the 76ers, it's very clear that there is one team where when you take one player out of the mix, it largely does not affect the big picture of it. Gordon Hayward's obviously out, and the Celtics still had a very steady sweep of the 76ers. And so I think all of those players, you see Jason Tatum putting up big numbers, you see Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown all putting up big numbers, maybe not big numbers, but big performances. But none of them are this like, without X player, they couldn't do it. I genuinely think that any kind of movement of the players they have, they work well together and they all produce, where you have these superstars on the 76ers and it just felt like it never clicked. There was like something lacking there. And I think that thing being team chemistry. It doesn't mean the players they have aren't great, because they are, but there was just something missing in the puzzle that was the team.
And you can't say when there's a sweep like that, I think that you could just say, you know what, they outplayed us and we tried hard and that was great. Because it's a sweep. You didn't try hard. You had 7 games to try hard and you just putzed out at game 4. Like, so
you putzed out at game 4. That's funny.
I mean, seriously.
You putzed out at game 4.
You saw that immediate let go of Brown and kind of a whole reevaluation of what is going to make this team click. We saw it a little bit with the Golden State Warriors when they started adding on so many powerful players on their team. And
now here we are.
And what it really comes down to is big egos, to be honest with you. I feel like with the 76ers,
I think that's
they
a
have
hot
so
take.
many specialized players that it's really difficult to get them all going. They're missing something crucial.
Well, they're missing also, not that this would have solved everything, but like the shooter that is JJ Redick, I think might have made like a massive difference. And maybe not massive, but like some sort of difference.
The 76ers lost their game plan, like whatever path they were traveling on.
Okay, like here's
they
this.
They let go of Redick and then they let go of Butler.
So like
whatever
here's the
plan
thing.
They had didn't work out, but Jimmy Butler is laughing his ass off in Orlando.
So the Ringer's Haley O'Shaughnessy did the article is very cleverly titled, "The Sixers gave Brett Brown everything except what he needed." And in the article, it lists like a few moves that the organization has made in the past several years. One of them being signing Tobias Harris to a 5-year, $180 million contract as the 3 guy. And he made 2 threes the entire series. So like, I think there's some things that like the idea was there that didn't come to fruition, but you can't have that many ideas that don't come to fruition. Like you need a few of them to work out, because then
you gotta be like, hey, here's your fat check. Now go put some points on the freaking
What
board.
Is Brett Brown to do when he's been given all these moves and none of them are really working the way that maybe the front office intended when they gave them all this money? So we kind of, a lot of that is like chemistry, not necessarily like chemistry can be 2 things. I think like relationships amongst players and kind of like being able to win and work together as a cohesive group. Chemistry also being how to everyone on the teams from front office coaching to players, how does everyone's talents work together, I guess, to be a more cohesive like unit. So
that begs the question, Lily.
Yeah. Go.
How important is team chemistry to you building, if you had the accessibility and stuff to build a roster for a professional sports team? How much are you emphasizing sportsmanship and team chemistry in your organization's values?
Well, I think it's something that, like I said, is extremely important on a few levels, being not just does your team get along so you're not spending practice breaking up fights and petty arguments and actually spending time practicing, which that's an extreme measure, but it happens. And then also, how do the talents that you've gathered together complement each other? And so, do you have a shooter? Do you have a good big man? Like, I don't know, stuff like that. So I think out of 10, like, how important is chemistry in any definition of the word? I'd say like 11, maybe. Just because I just think, I don't know, it's like that's the whole like super team thing. It's like, there's still a lot of debate about that. Like, can the super teams thing really work? I think it does, but with the right super team. I don't think you're just taking any player. I don't think you take the best player at each position and you have a good team necessarily.
I think that it goes a long way. And we've have some instances that we're going to debate about. This is what we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk chemistry.
Chemistry, the way it differs between sports and who can get away with it and who definitely does not get away with it. And so with that, I'm going to bring up something that we are a little familiar about. Earl Thomas, his situation with the Ravens in Baltimore, and how that did not work for him. So earlier last week, Earl Thomas was the former Ravens safety. His lazy attitude, his lack of sportsmanship, and his overall uncollaborative like attitude towards the team ended up with him throwing a punch at ever so calm Chuck Clark in practice last week, and he was released. He was sent home, and he is no longer the Ravens safety.
Pass go. Do not collect $200. See you later.
Exactly. And here's how some facts that we can discuss at a further point. It wasn't an isolated incident, this throwing the punch. He had been late to several practices over his time in Baltimore. He was formerly had an altercation with his teammate Brandon Williams after a loss to the Browns last season, a conversation that looked a little heated. And Chuck Clark, who he threw the punch at, was in control of the safety position. The Ravens were doing really well. They were winning almost every week last year. Thomas was coming off an injury prior to signing with the Ravens, and they thought, you know what, things are going kind of well for us. I think we can handle it. They kind of take after those more like not level-headed football players. And so, to put it nicely,
that was a really like polite way of just being like, yeah, everyone needs to calm
what's going on down there?
Everybody should just calm the fuck down and like take a deep fucking breath.
So,
which is like my answer to so many things. I'm like, you know what? This really sounds like everybody just needs to count to 10, take a deep breath, and like regroup. Let's regroup.
I know you guys want to like fight each other, and there's a ton of testosterone, but like, let's calm down. It's just football at the end of the day.
Count to 10.
So, go on. Anyway, after he gets released from practice, he goes to social media and he posts a video, and everyone kind of takes off from there. It's like the video is the play that he threw a punch on, and then it just kind of took off from there. I mean, for me, this is my thing. I love watching athletes interact on social media. I think them being on it and using it well is great, but there's a fine line. I think that if you're gonna go try to, I don't know what he was trying to do there. I think he was trying to like out them. Like he's like, I'm gonna get ahead of this before you could talk smack like on my name. So
Is it
here's
like
what
trying
happened.
to say that he's
But it
right?
didn't look good. It didn't look good. I would rather work with, okay, if he wanted to stay with the organization, he would have worked with the Ravens PR department, and his agent would have worked with them to figure out a really good way to get around this, behind it, and hopefully never have that happen again. But he had been a problem in that locker room for a really long time. So I think at that point, they were all just like, F it. He said, I'm going to throw this punch because I don't really care. And I know that this is my last straw here. Like, you know when enough's enough. And like whenever you're making decisions in any area of life, you know when like you're going to push it too far. Deep down, I believe that people know. So I think that he knew.
I mean, yeah, he's an adult man. He knows what he's doing when he's throwing a punch. Like he's
exactly. And so the Ravens will take a $15 million salary cap hit for releasing him.
Okay, here's my thing.
That he was like a detriment to the team. But either way, we could tell just by that number how much the Ravens organization values.
Was like, nope, sorry, again, pass like, go, do not collect $200.
I don't need that shit.
Like, if you're gonna take a $15 million salary cap hit, then this guy's obviously not good for your team. Like, you're like, you know what? We will pay $15 million for you to just like chill, man. And I think that that's like, okay, so there was probably a problem.
If he takes $50 million from your team, he's too mad for you, bro.
He's too mad for you, bro. Yeah, that's like the telling thing to me is just like it wasn't just like, listen, we can't, like, you need to figure this out. It was just like, nope, it's worth losing the $15 million to not have to deal with this anymore.
If I had $15 million, I would never let that girl go.
So I think this is just like, this is one of the examples of, it's like, you can have good team chemistry, but like, are your personalities and your talents cohesive with each other?
And when
people are throwing punches at practice, I just feel like that's not really cohesive.
I mean,
it brings me back to high school sports. If there was any like disagreement, they're like, okay, you're running laps, see you in a mile. And I was like, ooh.
Like, they were still doing well, but at what cost? Like, if all of your players are unhappy. And I mean, that obviously, no matter what, comes down to the organization itself, I think, and what they value in their workplace.
This is also at practice when there's like
maybe the
literally
Washington
nothing on the
team
line.
would have applauded him and had a parade for him around
the
stadium, because who knows what they value down there anymore.
Okay,
I can't even keep up with them.
So, Jess, let's give this interaction, incident, whatever you want to call it, a chemistry grade, A through F. What are you grading it?
I'm grading a friggin' F. Like, what the hell? This guy's crazy. I mean, seriously, like, this is the thing. Like, I get it. Football is a full contact sport.
But you can't punch people. It's a full contact sport, but you can't get mad at practice and punch someone in the face.
You can't do that to your teammate. It's almost like it would be a little bit more respectable if it wasn't his teammate. It's definitely not respectable because it was his teammate.
Unwritten rules of baseball: don't assist an opposing player.
Exactly. Like, it's like that. It's like, it just is so, it just makes no sense. Like, do better. Do better. We're full circle now. Do better.
Okay, so our next incident of chemistry or lack thereof is a classic one. This is a little throwback.
And it, like, did you see the little smile that just came on my face? Because we're about to talk about, like, this man and
oh yeah. Okay, so everyone, I feel like if you had to guess of the three that we were gonna pick, this one's probably always gonna be on it. Kobe and Shaq. 96 to 04 Lakers. 3 consecutive titles from 2001 to 2003. Shaq won the MVP in each of the titles they won. However, as with any two phenomenal basketball players, there's the potential, who are very highly regarded and very talented. There is always the chance for there to be some personal issues, little button heads in that. So they had obviously some personal differences regarding their roles on the team. And 2004, Shaq was traded to the Heat, And one day later, Kobe re-signed with the Lakers. The rest is history. So was always talk of them not getting along, having like personal issues and things like that, that ultimately, after 3 titles, led to Shaq being traded.
They were just this is like them being 2 different people who butt heads based solely on how they were as like individuals outside.
Well, yeah. So
and inside of basketball.
I think that this is like an example of kind of the other end of things, where it's like you have players whose talents and maybe not personalities, whose talents are very cohesive and create this great team unit, but personal issues not get in the way of that. Because I think with Kobe and Shaq, while there was all this drama and it was so talked about for so long, when they were playing together, it obviously didn't totally have a lasting impact because they won 3 titles. And so I think that that's the thing of like, they had their issues, we're able to put them aside.
I almost like didn't want to even use, but this is like a classic.
It's just a classic example
that we had to talk about, but I almost didn't even want to talk about it because
it's so unique.
2 men are legends. They are legends, and they always will be. So it's almost like, obviously, no matter what was going on in their own brains, they were putting that to the side when game time was going
and
down.
I think that kind of that goes into them kind of being how regarded they are in basketball, because it was all like, again, I don't know Kobe and Shaq. I don't know exactly what their personal issues were stemming from, like specific instances, but they had their personal issues. They won 3 titles. And then when it kind of got to a point, Shaq was traded to Miami. Now I think with this, so just first off, chemistry grade for me, I'm going B+, because the only thing I can take points off for is because the only thing I can really take points off for is the trade. So what's your grade? And then I'll get into why.
Well, because it ended with a trade, it's like, this is the way I'm viewing it.
Can't be an A.
You end with a trade, you don't get an A because you didn't work through all the problems. You kind of traded away your problems, which is fine. That's how it goes in sports. It's a business. I would give it, I don't know, you said B+. I would go around a B too, because like at the end of the day, like when you like go to class hungover and you take a test and you get a B the next day, you're like, oh yeah, like I'm bragging about a B no matter what. A C, I don't know if like if I was this is the instance, if I was hungover, went to class. So like for anyone else, I would probably just give them like if this was 2 other people besides Shaq and Kobe, I'd probably give them a C, but just because of the expectations on it and the fact that they're fucking legends.
It was also just like,
I'm going to give him a B.
I don't remember it as much, like, obviously I wasn't born until 1998.
Well, this wasn't like our time.
Yeah, it wasn't our time. So everything I know about this is secondhand. Like I never witnessed it. I never like watched any interviews live or whatever. So all I know about it is like from what I've learned in like learning about basketball and reading and stuff like that. Yeah. But so I think it like leads me to this thing of like, I feel like I'll never know how it really was in the moment. You know what I mean? It was like, did they really, was it so like
good? And we have to give them credit is because like,
exactly.
We'll never see them be so vicious and abrasive towards each other.
I feel like you don't remember Shaq and Kobe as hating each other. You remember them as winning 3 titles. That's how, you know what I mean? Like you don't think
like,
Shaq and Kobe, they hated each other.
But it's not like the way we're going to think about like
about disagreements. Yeah. Well, so, and that's my thing. So the reason I'm going B+, and obviously because like it ended in trade, what do the Lakers look like if they don't trade Shaq? Or is there no way around it? They were going to trade him, no doubt about it.
I think if they were really beefing that hard and they were like, okay, well, you know, Shaq's kind of like, Shaq's older than Kobe. You know, when Kobe arrived on the scene, Shaq actually had said, quote, I'm not going to be babysitting when Kobe Bryant arrived to the Lakers. So I think that the Lakers had to make a decision like, okay, they're not really like out of control right now. Obviously, there was no single brawl incident like the one with Earl Thomas that we could narrow down and just say, hey, this was the breaking point.
Yeah, it was just they were both really good.
It had to be that bad, though, that they couldn't settle for both of them after winning 3 championships. You know what I mean? That's like a high consolation prize. Like,
yeah,
they were probably
3 consecutive championships,
contemplating a 4th championship or trading one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to definitely go with it. Like,
well,
look,
Shaq, I think, and I might be wrong. I might be wrong. I think Shaq also wanted more money, and I don't know if they were going to give it to him. I might be wrong. Like, don't quote me on that.
No, but that's just something else to think about. They probably just made the decision where, like, we're going to have to go with Kobe because we're going to get more out of Kobe than we're going to get out of Shaq right now. So why am I going to pay up there when I could pay up here? Or, like,
Shaq was a Celtic for a while.
Yeah, and they could save up on Kobe being a younger guy and not having the power of, like, a veteran pull, but also, like, they should have just.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. So yeah, I'm.
But yeah, I think I'll go a B because it's still something to brag about.
Okay, here's my final answer.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, my final answer is B+, and I want someone to write. No, and I want someone to make the "What If Shaq Never Got Traded" movie. Like, I just want the movie, the, like, what if, the alternate universe, like, what would it have looked like? I'm just curious, that's all.
Okay, that would be, like, the craziest series of rewrites to ever exist on, like, a movie history. Like, I don't think anyone, you asked me that question, and, like,
You're just, like, oh,
if you guys are watching this, like, my eyes kind of popped out of my head. I was like, I'm, like, kind of smart, but, like, I'm not that smart. Like, a lot of our professors would be able to answer that question way better than I ever could have
All
imagined.
right, so what is our third matchup?
So we're going to go back a little bit on this one. Duo, it's like a dreaded duo, not like a dynamic duo.
Okay,
I mean,
I think you can call Shaq and Kobe a dynamic duo that
Yes. No hate on them.
That
but
one of them got traded.
Here we go. Number 3, Jeff Kent and Barry Bonds.
I feel like this is a far less known one.
So this one is interesting. Lily and I were talking about this for a while before we started recording, but basically this is how it goes down. 6 seasons together on the Giants, 97 to 02, 03. They combined for a total of 479 home runs together, but came out to no surprise of the fans. Kent said, quote, "We were not friends," to the San Francisco Chronicles a couple days before he was inducted into the Bay Area Hall of Fame. So this was the breaking point. See, this is the thing. We could identify this and the other case to a breaking point, whereas Kobe and Shaq, we really, like, couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
June 2002. Take it back. Everyone was probably
I love this setup
low-rise jeans.
So picture this.
Denim on denim.
Low-rise jeans, denim on denim.
Weird cell phones that you had to
Flip
probably
phones.
like lift a thing. Wasn't that maybe that that was the 90s, I think, when you had to like lift that thing, and then I don't know. I've had an iPhone. Suckers. So anyway, June 2002, 10-7 loss to the Padres for the Giants. In the middle of the second or third inning, the two guys, Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent, started screaming at each other, fighting, yelling, shoving each other. Ended up with Bonds grabbing Kent around the neck, pushing him against the dugout wall. And immediately afterwards, in that same inning, Barry Bonds comes out, three-run homer hit. And then in the sixth inning, Kent hit a homer. So, and the Giants made it to the World Series that year with the two of them leading the way.
Wait, so Jess, do you know what
stealing each other's bus seats, like,
do you know what the number one top 40 song in June of 2002 was?
What?
1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton.
Did White Chicks come out in 2002?
No, I think it was way after that. I will
Yeah?
find out.
I don't know.
But so, like, imagine all of this Barry Bonds, Kent drama
So you
set
have Barry
to 1,000 miles
Bonds
by Vanessa Carlton.
grabbing Jeff Kent, and it's like
What a contrast.
making my way around the ballpark, grabbing Jeff Kent's throat.
White Chicks was 2004. White Chicks was 2004. Oh,
2000.
great movie.
Okay, so
not long after.
not long after.
So
Anyway, this was what the whole reason this started, this like beef that has been so intense that they had to fight in the middle of a game with their own teammates, was, I think, just because of two different personalities between these men. Bonds was known for being self-centered, standoffish. He didn't want to conform to the rules. He was rocking to the beat of his own drum, while Kent is classic old school baseball fella, like, just let me play my game. And basically Kent had come out saying, like, why do we have to be friends? When he was interviewed for this article before he was inducted into the Bay Area Hall of Fame, he's like, it doesn't matter. We won games. We went to the World Series. So why are you guys still asking me these questions? So, Lily, does baseball and any other sport you can think of require less team chemistry than other sports, and why?
I think I don't want to just blatantly say yes, because I think there's a different type of chemistry that's needed in baseball. However, like, when you look at the pure logistics of baseball, you can have a designated hitter that's going to come up to the plate, hit a home run, and that's between them and the pitcher. Like, there's not a lot of other, like, interactions that they would have with players if they're not fielding. I think the chemistry comes in fielding. I think you need chemistry in things like run support, which is not the typical way that people view chemistry, but I think it's also important. Like, you can't win games without run support. Sorry, Mets fans. And
Self into the heart.
And so I think there's, like, a different dynamic of chemistry that's needed. But I don't think that chemistry is like, we all have to be best friends and get along. I don't think, honestly, any athletes have to be best friends.
But there's a huge problem no matter what sport you're in if you're brawling with your own teammate in a dugout.
I think it's, like, not to throw it all the way back to kindergarten, which is where we were in 2002, but there is the very, like, basic concept of, like, you don't have to like anybody, but you have to respect them. And I think that's what it boils down to, is, like, I think it's fun for people when athletes are friends. Like, I think that's, like, a really interesting,
like,
it
nice.
It gives it another level. It's a
feel-good story.
Yeah, it gives, like, sports another level of, like, rooting for a team. You want them to do well because you like them as people, because you like them as friends, whatever. And I think there has to be
fighting kind of has the same effect.
Yeah. But because not with your own teammates. But
you see their raw emotion. It's like, I don't know what exactly happened in the seconds leading up to that chokeout, but you gotta be really freaking mad to choke
your own teammate,
man choking out another grown man like that.
To the tune of 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. I can't get out of my head that was the number one song when this happened.
I mean, but seriously, like, it's like, okay, well, don't F with that guy, I guess. I don't know. I mean, Barry Bonds' own set of issues that we've now realized as a society is not okay. So maybe Kent was just like, dude, what's wrong? And he's like, Rush, Kent,
Okay, so what's your chemistry grade for this one?
A D, because nobody writes home about a D. Like, they just don't.
Nobody writes home, but is there credit for them, like,
C's get degrees, and I don't even give them
no, but I'll give them a C in getting the degree in that they won the World Series. You know what I mean? They went to the World Series, they won the games. Like Kent said, who cares if we're friends? We won the games. Sayonara, see ya.
I don't know, man. What a bad look. Like, I just could imagine, like, all
what
of
a
them.
bad
The
look
starting
choking your
lineup
own
for
teammate is.
the starting lineup for the Giants sitting in the PR long conference room for the organization the
This
next
is
day.
why
And
PR
the
is
PR staff
terrifying.
member comes in and it's like, what did I freaking tell you guys? Like, stop doing this. It was my kid's birthday this weekend. I had to take 100 phone calls because you choked this guy out.
All right, so yeah, that's that. I'm going C. Just is going D. More on baseball. Moving on to our moment of the week. Last week, the Tatis Jr. Grand Slam and all the discourse that followed unanimously was picked over
Thanks,
Jess's
guys.
wholesome story. Moment of the week this week. Jess, go.
All right. So I'm not scratching this down to one moment, although I do have one moment particularly in mind. But my moment of the week is going to the Dallas Stars, killing it this week at their 5-game win streak right now. It started after Game 4 in the first round of the playoffs versus the Flames. The series was tied 2-2, and ever since then, they hit the ice skating. I was gonna say the ground running. They hit the ice.
They hit the ice skating.
And they turn this playoffs around, and their major win that I'm highlighting specifically was Game 6 that they beat the Flames and won. They turned around and crushed a 7-3 win over the Flames, won the series, like I said. And that was so crazy. I remember sitting at my friend's house. The game was on, and no one was paying attention because it was just the Dallas Stars, like, playing hockey. We don't care. And one of our friends was saying, they're going to win. They're going to win. They're going to win. And I think the Flames came out, scored 2 goals in a very quick amount of time in the first period. And then all of a sudden, the Stars just start sending shots in, puck in, ranking it up. The game ends up being 7-3, and everyone was trash talking them like, yeah, they're never going to do it. Whatever, just call it.
And here we are.
And here we are, 5-game win streak. Fucking moment of the week, guys. I don't know anyone from Dallas, but kick ass.
So my moment is the Blazers-Lakers game last night, the score being 24-8 during the first quarter on Kobe Bryant's birthday. I think stuff like this is so like bone chilling, like it like makes the hairs in your arms stand up. And it's just really like all the players obviously felt very strongly about it. And it was just kind of like a weird, like, but nice moment. And so I thought that was really cool. So that's my moment for the week.
It was beautiful.
Jess, any tweets you had this week you wanna share with the class?
There's so many. I spent all of my time on Twitter. And it's so funny because I was on Twitter like very like locked in on my screen yesterday when I was watching that game. And then the one moment that I looked up to see the score was the 24-8. And I was like, damn, the Blazers are getting blown out. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, but like it's 24-8 on Kobe Day. And that made me very emotional. And that was just me procrastinating till I could find my tweet that I like.
Do you want me to go?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You find yours. My tweet is actually not to be that guy. This is not self-promoting. This is purely to like kickstart a question. My tweet of the week is I tweeted it last night at around 2 a.m. I said, I'm awake just thinking about how good Exile on Main Street is, the Rolling Stones album. And I tweeted this because last night, for absolutely no reason at all, I was up very, very late thinking about what the greatest album of all time is. I think Exile on Main Street is one of the greatest albums of all time. Rolling Stone has it as number 7 on the 500 greatest albums of all time list. Number 1 is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. And so I want to know from everyone, what do you think the greatest album of all time is? Not necessarily your favorite. If you tell me your favorite too, love to know that. But
hey,
like,
if
what
you're passionate enough to think that your favorite album
is the best of all time, then let me know.
Rock on.
But let me know what you think the greatest album of all time is, because I stayed up for far too many hours thinking about this and going back and forth. I had some that I had in mind were like Revolver, Rubber Soul, Beatles, Exile on Main Street. I really like the Doors debut album. I don't know. It could go a lot of places.
You want to hear what I think the greatest album of all time is?
Yes.
A Little Bit Longer by the Jonas Brothers.
Okay, I can get behind that.
It was inspiring to me as a 14-year-old.
Okay, Highway 61. Highway 61 Revisited, Bob Dylan, The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. I don't know. Let me know what you think, because I stayed up way too late thinking about
Lily
this.
just basically wants you to follow her on Twitter.
No, and I came to absolutely zero conclusion about it, so let me know. Jess, tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week. I legit loved the moment that went down a couple of days ago on Twitter when the broadcast caught J.R. Smith looking so whacked out. It was hilarious. So I have this one tweet, and it's like, damn, JR been smoking Mickey Mouse runs. Like,
oh no.
he looks bad. It's always, I feel like the internet is out to get JR. I hope he has a thick skin. He has to look at this stuff and laugh. I mean, he looks cooked in this picture. So we'll toss it up there for you guys to check out and look at. But I hope you guys know what I'm talking about if you're just listening to this, because it's classic. The guy needs to get some eye drops from his eye doctor. I don't know. He needs to put some cold water on his face. My mom used to put like a bucket of cold water, like, or a cold rag on us, like when we wouldn't get up in the morning for school when we were younger. Ooh. Like, I think somebody needs to do that in the bubble to J.R. Smith.
To J.R. Smith.
I don't think that he's stoned in an NBA game, but like, stop making it look like you really are, because I looked at it for so long, like, no way, whose mans is this? Oh.
All right, so with that, this has been week's episode of Throwin Down.
Remember, we had a lot of people vote really great things for our moment of the week. Stay tuned for that over the weekend. We'll have you guys get your votes in, so next week we can induct another member into the Hall of Fame.
Follow us on social media at throwinnog_down. And yes. I think that's it. Jess?
Oh.
Yes.
It's never just sports, guys.
There we go. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will see you guys and hear you guys next week.